Shalom, everybody. Shalom, Bokto.
Shalom, shalom.
Okay, so I think almost everyone's here. So I sent in to the group a PDF of the Zohar and wanted to open up and discuss and revelate and bring down some of the keys for you all to help you guys better understand it. So some of you may know this, but I've been working on a commentary to the entire Zohar. I think Gila has seen it, and some of you that were in the groups amongst the project I was working on a long time ago probably remember a time period where I was doing 2 PDFs a day. And so far, it's coming very, very, very close to completion. As of right now, there's probably 4 or 5 volumes that are left to do commentaries on before the entire Zohar, all the 22 books, will have been completed. That being said, one of the most important is the first. So we're in the process of editing and bringing forth the tikkuns to help explain it all. But recently I shared sections from book 1, so I want to go through a portion of that with you guys because it's very important for us to understand, right? So the Tanya says in Igeret chapter 26 that redemption, the Gula, actually comes about through the Zohar. However, the Zohar is it's completely an inaccessible sefer. Like if you read the Zohar at the Peshat level, it's 100% inaccessible. And even for those that are incredibly learned, it still remains virtually inaccessible because some of the keys to actually understand what the Zohar is talking about have not been revealed until very recently. We'll see an example of that in the portion itself. And the other part is that, the Zohar is very much kind of like Kohelet, right? So for anyone who's read Kohelet, the sages remark and talk about, there's a massive discussion, like, do we include Kohelet or do we not include Kohelet? Because Kohelet was filled with things that seemingly were heretical, right? There's a bunch of statements in Kohelet that are seemingly heretical. And there's a massive discussion amongst the Chachamim as to whether or not to even include this sefer, right? Because of these heretical statements. Nonetheless, because the beginning is good and the ending is good, they ultimately decide to include Kohelet while still acknowledging that it has heretical themes, because they believe that the message in the beginning and the end essentially supersede this seemingly heretical statements that Kohelet brings down. The Zohar is a million times worse than that. There are things inside of the Zohar that's so heretical, it spin your world upside down. and it starts off like that, right? It starts off like that. So as we go through the Zohar, it's very important to have a grasp of it. No true understanding can come from the Zohar without being kind of brought into it. One of the reasons why is because once you've gone through the entire Zohar, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, but actually entered into its mysteries, you'll begin to understand and see that the Zohar was compiled and written at this level from the very beginning. And that's one of the more terrifying things about the Zohar. Because with most books, if not all human books, when you read the book, you're essentially starting off, and you don't really know how you're going to flesh out the plot line and how you're going to kind of reveal everything. The story kind of develops as you progress. That's how most writings are. Zohar is not like this at all. Zohar, every single thing that you're going to learn in the deepest portion of the Zohar, in the Idra Rabbi, the Zuta, the Idra Mishkan, which most people has never even heard of. It appears at the end of book 8. All of these incredible things are there from the very, very, very beginning. And quoting back to the Tanya, right? This commentary that's being compiled is incredibly important for the accessibility of the Western world, also for the accessibility of the Jewish world as well. I mean, without question, it really overlaps hand in hand. As we go through it, we'll see a glimpse of it. But to really understand why the Tanya was saying this, why eating of the Zohar, which is the tree of life, which has reconciliations, bring us out of exile in mercy. What is the exile? There are a couple of small points that I'd like to point out from some of the statements that I made last night, revealing some of the highest supernal keys. Like, for example, the withdrawing of the Shekhinah through the 7 heavens, right? Made a seemingly bizarre statement last night describing the Shekhinah's light essentially withdrawing through 7 firmaments, and then made another statement saying, and so when Moshe was here, we were the 49th level of the Klippa. And so it was 7 times 7 because the Shekhinah's light had withdrawn so much. With that being said, we'll go ahead and open up the Zohar commentary here. So I'd like you guys just to open that up, and we'll go through it real quick. I'll try to read it quickly. But this is a very special group because it's a little more inner circle as opposed to some of the other groups. This particular group, just I want to thank all of you guys for having assisted either Gilly or Malachi with Sadaka, so on and so forth. So for those of you that don't know exactly like what's going on with the Sadaka on those ends, especially that first fund that I mentioned, I don't actually have access to any of those funds, right? So that's held and managed by a very righteous soul who's a Rav for Chabad over there, and there's no Orthodox community in New York and another place. But all of that stuff goes into helping people in the Orthodox world across the board for a wide variety of different things. So that's where all those funds go to, and that's where all the funds of my books go to. So people probably don't know this about me, but I may have mentioned it once or twice, but I donate 100% of the proceeds from all of my books. I don't make any money from any of the books that I've published. There's 10 Sefer Yeros books, and I don't receive a single penny from any of them. But all of it's donated into charity, or donated to Tzedakah in this case. In the Orthodox world, it's very important to support the study of Torah, so on and so forth. So thank you guys for all of you that have assisted in some way or another. Malachi has managed a fund that has mainly gone into upholding various projects, so on and so forth, and trying to make all this stuff accessible to everybody completely free. You guys see with like the PDF for Likite, so on and so forth. There's other different projects that were that Malachi's heading over. One of the major projects that Malachi has seeded over was the composition of the Zohar, which has been a project now a few years in the making, and getting it out there. And even though the commentaries are just about complete, I have taken the time to go back and try and arrange for the tikkuns. I feel that the Zohar needs to have the tikkuns inside of it. So before even though I gave the keys, the highest keys, gave it through commentary. And I realized that without imagery, it's very difficult to grasp these things. So he's been heading over those projects and assisting greatly in all of those endeavors. So for those of you guys that have sent any kind of tzedakah over to Malachi, almost all of that has gone into some kind of support of those endeavors. And that's been various projects, not just including the Zohar, but other things. So I want to thank all of you guys here for having done that. And one other. So we'll go ahead and go into the PDF here. Okay, so we're in the complete Zohar. All right, so we're in prologue, verse 1. So it says, Rabbi Hezekiah opened the discussion with the verse saying, arose amongst us thorn, right? And he asked, what is the rose? And he replies, it's the congregation of Israel, which is Malkut. Because there is a rose and there is a rose, just as a rose amongst the thorns is tinged red and white, so is the congregation of Israel affected by the qualities of judgment and mercy. Just as the rose has 13 petals, so the congregation of Israel is surrounded by 13 attributes of mercy. Thus, between the first mention of the name Elohim, the second mention, there are 13 words. These words surround and guard the congregation of Israel. So the commentary. So Rebbe Hezekiah refers to the sphere of Chokmah. As his name contains Chazak, the word for strong, Yud-K, referring to Chokmah that is called by this name Yud-K. So Hezekiah is composite of these two words, right? Strong and Yud-K, which personifies sphere of Chokmah. The value of the word Hezekiah is 130. This hints to the word Sinai, an example like Har Sinai. And also the word Ayin, I. Atzilus corresponding to Chokmah is a level called sight, right? So Atzilus is called sight, Bria is called hearing, Yitzir is smell. This is one of the secrets of Mashiach, right? They say Mashiach called smell. It's talking about Yitzira. That's a major key there. And Malchus is called speech. So sight, this hints to both I and Sinai, because I corresponds to the Partzufim Structure, which is about to be stated, and Sinai is about revelation, seeing, right, being revealed. Furthermore, Ayin, when written in the singular sense, refers to the Partzufim Structure, which in various places hints to Atzilus and Chokmah. This is followed by the word open, petach. Petach, the same word, refers to the vowel petach, and Tikkun Zohar identifies petach as the nikud vowel, corresponding to the sphere of Chokmah. The head letters of Rabbi Hezekiah petach, right, are resh fechet, 288. Okay, there's resh from Rabbi Hezekiah is the chet, and petach it's fe, so that's the value 288. So far, what we've understood is that the Zohar is opening up corresponding to the sphere of Chokmah and corresponding to Atzilus. This is a very important thing to understand, because as you'll see, the Zohar builds on itself segment by segment. And so the Zohar is 100% mathematical. Everything inside of the Zohar is formula. Every single thing in the Zohar is formula. And the key to accessing the formula is to know the beginning point. No rabbi in the Zohar is there by coincidence. If they mention a rabbi's name, it's because they personify something. Like, I'll give you just a brief example, right? So like Rav Eliezer, like what is Eliezer? Well, Eliezer is Saruf, right? Saruf means an arrangement of letters. El-Zer, to Zer, okay? So it personifies Zerampin. Or Rabbi Shimon, right? Why didn't it open up with Rabbi Shimon? Why does it open up with Rabbi Hezekiah? Right? Rabbi Hezekiah is like hardly even mentioned anywhere in the Zohar. Right? He's not really a major character predominant anywhere, so why even mention him at the beginning? Why wasn't Rabbi Shimon that opened up? But as I stated, Hezekiah personifies this aspect of Atzilus and Hokmah, and Rav Shimon contains the word Shema. Shema, remember, is Berea, that's hearing. Okay, so anyways, so it's 288. So it's 288. This refers to 72, 63, 45, and 52 names, which are the secret of 288. These four names, being the four worlds, are all in the aspect of 72 or Chokmah, and so they're 288. So even though there's the 72 name, 63 name, 45 name, and 52 name, which respectively are Atzilus, Berea, Yetzir, and Asiya, they're all in the aspect of Atzilus, being the 72 names. So it's considered as if they're all the 72 name. The 72 times 4 equals 288. That's the idea, is that Atzilus, Berea, Yetzir, Asiya. Now the Arizal touches on this concept in Eitz Chaim. So Eitz Chaim reveals that the 288 refer to the 72 name, 63 name, 45 name, 52 name. Now, the 72, 60, 45, 52 is the secret of the word tal, do. But it's also the secret of the prohibitions, okay? The prohibitions on Shabbat. How many prohibitions are there on Shabbat? Right, it's 39. And what else? There's also the lashes, right? This is the secret of lashes. And it's also the secret of curses. So all of these things are corresponding to these worlds. So let's open over this. Okay. The Sophist letters of the same phrase, meaning Rabbi Hezekiah Petach, we have a Yid from Ribi, a Hey from Hezekiah, and a Chet from Petach. They arrange to say the word Chaya, life. As it is written, wisdom, Chochmah, gives life to its possessor. Right? And so we can see there the verse, Chochmah gives life to its possessor, from Ecclesiastes. And underneath that we see Ribi Hezekiah Petach, where the first letter of Ribi Hezekiah Petach is the 288, and the final Sophist letters are Chaya. Now that we have an understanding of this, we see that we've begun properly with Chokmah and the various proofs and seals that this is indeed what's being spoken of here has been given. We know that Chokmah and Atzilus is the level called Chaya, to even further solidify all of the aforementioned points that have been established. Why did it open up with Petach? Opened, right? It could have said something else. There are various places, not in every place does it use the word Petach. Sometimes it just says such and such said, right? So this is to draw your attention to the language of the Zohar, that through the language of the Zohar, that again is all formula. Everything is formula. So obviously our next Sefirot is going to be Bina. The next level is going to be the sphere of Bina, Ima. So then it says the following verses said, Kativ Keshoshana Bina Chochim, as the rose, right, amongst the thorns. This refers to the spheres of Bina, which is called the rose, Shoshana. The term amongst the thorns, Bina Chochim, hints to this fact, as the letters of amongst, Bin, and the first letters of the thorns, HaChochim, spell the word Bina. So we can see Bina Chochim. So Bin, the first one is between, and then the first letter of the word HaChochim tells us Bina. This is very, very powerful keys that are being given here. So we see again that the language of the Zohar, right, has embedded these secrets. There's a reason why Zohar is called Zohar HaKodesh. Why would the Tanya say to such a degree that Zohar is so important that it leads Israel out of exile? Okay, what was the purpose of removal of the exile? The purpose of taking Israel out of Egypt, which is the exile, was for the giving of the Torah. Thus, in a similar likeness, the Zohar is being likened to the giving of the Torah. We are led out of exile to eat of the Zohar, which is exactly like us being led out of Egypt to eat of the Torah for Har Sinai. For if the Torah is holy, how much more holy the Panimios of the Torah? This is why, like in amongst Kabbalistic circles, they don't just call it the Zohar, they call it Zohar HaKodesh, the Holy Zohar. The Holy Zohar. How many books have that title and held into such a high regard outside of Zohar? So It continues. What is a rose? This refers to Malchus, which is also called a rose identified by the Assembly of Israel, a term applied to the spheres of Malchus. There is a rose, Bina, and a rose, Malchus. Just as a rose amongst the thorns, Bina, is tinged red and white, referring to the left and right columns, which are red and white, addressed by the two aforementioned spheros in the passage. Because the first spheros was Chokmah, which was Rev Chizkiah Petach, and the second one was Geshoshana Bina Chochim, which is Bina. So thus it talked about tinged red and white, because Chokmah is the top of the right column, which is white, and Bina is the top of the left column, which is red. And those were the first things that the passage opened up with. So is the congregation of Israel, Malchus, affected by the qualities of judgment, left column in red, and mercy, right column in white. This is because Malchus, being the final spheros, receives the flow, the Shefa. Shefa, by the way, has a numerical value of Shekhinah. Okay, so and one of the ways of saying Shefa, there's a couple ways of varying spellings of it. But one way that Shefa can be spelled is Shin Fe He. That might not be grammatically correct, but this is what's written. They were all of one Shefa, one language, right? And so this is what it talks about the Tower of Babel, right? So Shin Fe He has a numerical value of 385. This is the value of the word Shekinah. So, and reflects the emanation of the higher spheros, worlds, and Partzufim. So here we see a diagram. This diagram was made by Gavriel. Gavriel has compiled almost all of the tikkunim, been digitizing them. And this flower was originally based off of one that Aleph had made. For those of you guys who have probably seen Aleph's works, you probably have seen this flower. So nonetheless, Gavriel, I tasked him with creating a conceptual image for this, and it was compiled. Now, we're not talking about Das here. We're talking about Keter Chokmah Bina. The general point here is that in the Zohar, we most times are not dealing with the tree of life as we understand it, because the tree of life as we understand it is like Chokmah and Bina are in this symbiotic relationship. And sure, there are places where the Zohar is using that language, but most of the time the Zohar is using what is called the arrangement of the Partzuf, a Rechain pin. Hence, I hinted to that in the above portion when I talked about Chizkiah as a numerical value of the word Ein, I. And then I likened that to a Rechain pin. That's to teach us that the Partzuf's arrangement, the tree of life arrangement, is not in the classical sense that classical Kabbalah would have you understand it, right? But rather in the Partzufim of a Rechain pin. And in a Rechain pin's Partzuf, it's Keter, and then beneath that is Chokmah, then beneath that is Bina, and then beneath that are the lower seven spheros. So that is the arrangement that we're dealing with here. And only with this arrangement can we see why there's a rose and a rose. Okay, so we see that Bina, which is represented by the upper rose, perfect rendition, upper rose. As we know, Zohar calls like Bina Eta U, right? U is Aleph Tav Hey. That's 22 letters, and Malchus is called S. That's Aleph Tav, right? So 22 letters, and we see that it splits in between two columns, right and left. This is red and white. This is why they said that even as the rose is tinged with red and white. And now we can see that the pathways descend from the two columns, left and right, and they merge and converge in on the sphere of Malchus. So Malchus is tinged by qualities of judgment and mercy because it's receiving and reflecting the orders. Just as a rose has 13 petals, page 3, just as a rose has 13 petals, the spheres of Bina bestows all of the upper orders, and thus it states it has 13 petals. These 13 petals refer to the 13 Partzufim, and they are. Now, this is a very important thing to understand, okay? So, and this is going to have an overlapping idea that's found in another place, which I'll touch upon. I did not include it here, but since this is a private circle and amongst the friends, I'll share it with you here. Malchus is usually associated with the 10th emanation, right? But here it's not being associated with the 10th emanation. It's being associated with the 13th emanation. This is somewhat even signified by the spheres of Chokmah, which is called Achava. In some places called Achava, even though the Zohar properly attributes Yirah And so we could also attribute this to Bina, right? Bina is called Achava in another place as well. Nonetheless, the value of Achava is 13, right? Aleph is 1, Hey is 5, Base is 2, Hey is 5. And so the emanations here, Malchus is being identified as a 13th emanation, and I actually list these emanations here. This is a very important thing to understand. So classically, we just kind of get this association of the 10 Sephiros. However, there are actually 13 because there are 3 concealed heads, and these 3 concealed heads correspond to the Atik, touch on a little bit later. But this has an overlapping theme in some of the most esoteric Gnostic writings. They're going to say that Sophia, which Sophia is just a Greek word for Chokmah, and so they call it Pistis, right? Pistis Sophia. Pistis is the same as Amunah. Pistis means faith. It's the same in Hebrew as Amunah. Amunah is associated with the sphere of Malchus. So they call it Pistis Sophia. They're really talking about Nukva Vatzilos, right? Because that's Amunah, Pistis, Malchus of Sophia, which is Chokmah, okay? And they identify her as the 13th emanation. So I don't know if you guys know this, but and not in every Gnostic writing, but there are certain Gnostic writings that ascribe to her as the 13th emanation. So this is a very overlapping arc, and the reason why they're overlapping is because the Zohar is written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So this wisdom was the predominant wisdom over the sages of Israel 2,000 years ago. This also happens to be the same time where these Gnostic writings were laid down. Like, where did Gnosticism even come from? We unfortunately think it came from Christianity, right? We think that that's associated with Christianity, but that's not really the case. Okay, Gnosticism was before that, and is also found even after that. You know, if you like look up the circles in Spain regarding Abraham Abulafia on the Wikipedia pages, they're going to say that they were Gnostics, right? Gnostic Kabbalists. How can you be a Gnostic Kabbalist? I thought Gnosticism was Christianity. Well, again, Gnosticism has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to deal with 2 main core themes, and these are things that are heavily centralized. So first one is that gnosis simply means knowledge, right? Hashem asks of us, right? Vayadat Hashem, right? You will know, das. You will know. The word das is gnosis. The same word, okay? Because gnosis is knowledge, and das is knowledge. It's the same thing. So the entire Torah itself would be Gnostic, quote unquote, right? By that understanding, because essentially what God is asking us in the Torah is for us to have a knowledge of Him, for us to know Him. Okay, so that right there is there. We see that in the Zohar. And the second idea that's prevalent is the idea, of course, of the shattering of the sparks and the redeeming of the sparks, right? The entire Lurianic corpus is based off of this redeeming of the sparks. It only really surfaced amongst Judaism with the Arizal, okay? But the aspect of the scintilla or the lifting of the sparks can be found in Gnostic texts thousands of years ago. So once again, where did they get this from? Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is to show you that they got all this stuff from the Zohar and the sages of Israel. Again, in one of our talks, we talked a little bit about some of the overlapping history of where they got all that stuff at, right? Like these Nag Hammadi writings and these writings amongst the Essenes and so on and so forth. Where did this stuff kind of surface from? Or the Alexandrian Jews that was with Ptolemy that received the information from the sages in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land. Okay, so I digress from that. This little background information doesn't really have anything to do particularly with what we're talking about here, but just some extracurricular information. So the Sefirot of Bina bestows all the upper orders, and as it states, 13 petals. These 13 petals refer to 13 Partzufim. They're Atiki Kadisha, Atiki Yomin, Adam Kadmon. Arichainpin, Abba Ima, Israel Saba, Israel Tavuna, Leah, Rachel, Yaakov, Zerainpin, and Nukla. So these are the 13, right? So Atiki Kadisha is the absolute highest. Atiki Kadisha is unknowable. Atiki Kadisha is synonymous, and I've given this key over, and Likutei Yura, which is the proper way to understand it. Atiki Kadisha is identified as the Word Man, right? The Word Man, because technically the first thing that was the highest garment of the Holy One must be is the letters, and the letter man is the Atiki Kadisha, right? Because, for example, Fe means mouth. Whose mouth? The mouth of the endless, right? Eye means eye. Whose eye? The eye of the endless, right? Kof means skull. Like, what's going on here? What are these attributes of these parts? Well, so that man is called the Atika Kadisha, and I show in a place in Likute where I give a diagram of a word man, and I say, God forbid you think this is literally what it looks like, because it's not actually what it looks like. God forbid that, but nonetheless, it's for conceptual understanding of the concept, right? So Atika Kadisha is associated with this Partzuf. It's the absolute apex. It's above the mind, it's above the thought, and it's above the skull of the Ancient One. And the reason why is because it's the light that permeates the mind, the thought, and the skull, which is associated with the word, the 22 letters, Lashon HaKodesh, which identify as the Shekinah. So the Atik Yomin is the constructs that is basically the suit in which envelops all of the worlds, right? You can think like a Gundam or a robot, and there's a pilot. The pilot is the Atika Kadisha, but the robot is the Atik Yomin. It's basically the vehicle for the Atika Kadisha, and its height is all of the worlds. Its height is all of the worlds, right? So that's the level of the Atik Yomin. There's Adam Kadmon, which is the circular aspect. Now, usually Adam Kadmon would be the second level because it's the circular aspect, right? But instead, I place the Atik Yomin there, because ultimately the Atik Yomin is the connection point to it all, and there's a reason for that. Nonetheless, Atik Yomin and Adam Kadmon, being numbers 2 and 3, are interchangeable. There could be debate about it back and forth for sure. So Adam Kadmon is the circular aspect of the Sefirot, which is and Atik Yomin is the linear aspect, per se. This might be a better way for you to understand it. 4 is a Rikain pin, 5 is Abba, 6 is Ima. So Abba and Ima are really Chokmah and Bina, but when we think of Bina, we usually call it Ima, but in truth, Ima is actually the Bina of Chokmah. The Bina of Chokmah is actually Ima. It's not the Bina that we think of, because that Bina is actually Israel Saba and Israel Tavuna. So when we think of the Sefirot of Bina, the Chokmah and Bina inside of the Sefirot of Bina is Israel Saba and Israel Tavuna. That's what this Arizal says. So Abba and Ima are Chokmah and Bina inside of Chokmah. So when we use the term Ima, it's actually referring to Bina of Atzilus. And when we look at Israel Saba, Israel Tavuna, we're actually looking at Chokmah and Bina inside of this Sefirah of Ima. 9 is Leah, Partzuf Rachel. Then there's Partzuf Yaakov, which is on the right side of Zerayin. We have the 12th is Zerayin himself, and the 13th is the Nukva. So we see this Nukva is the 13th here. We see on page 4 a representation of the aforementioned Sephirotic system that was just supplied, right? So on page 4, this is one of the most powerful tikkuns that have ever really been compiled. When we look at the Ora Yashar, we just see like, okay, a Rikain pin, we see Atik, right? And we see a Rikain pin, Abba, Ima, Zerayin pin, Nukva. That's usually how it's shown. And we just see the straight light, and like a line maybe. And you have these names of these Sefirot and these Partzufs, but they don't show it. Meaning, like, they're showing you a line, and they're telling you that this is Adam Kadmon, and this is Atik, and this is a Rikain pin, this is Abba's, Ima's, Rapinufa, but they don't actually show the Partzuf itself. See, because if you were to have drawn or had look at the Sefirot and the Partzufs themselves at this level, you would immediately be drawn to the realization that you're looking at something. And this is why I said, what is the opposite of an uncreated God? And the answer is a created God. That most recent video is the most important key to avoid all heresy. It's so incredibly important. Like you've no idea how important it is to understand what is going on with the restriction and how it brings the opposite of God, right? You have to understand this key, because if you don't understand this key, you'll fall into tragic error, and that tragic error will lead into every heresy under the sun. right? It's very important that you understand this, because those Partzufim are the manifested God. That is a very important thing. That is the exact opposite of God. God is an unmanifested thing. But obviously the Partzufim are very manifested. And that is the opposite of God. First off, that can't be God. Why can that not be God? Because it's a created thing. It's a created thing that's antithetical to our understanding of God, right? Yet we all acknowledge that the Partzufim exists. And no one critically thinks about this because it makes people uncomfortable. This is why the sages said, do not look into the restriction, for all heresies arise out of it. Rav Nachman of Breslov says in his Likutei HaMoran, the last thing he says in his final sefer is discussing the Tzimtzum, and he says to avoid the study of it because it leads to heresy. But then he says, however, of the sage, he must study it. He must study it to reconcile these heresies. And so many of the Kabbalists only stayed in the world of Tikkun. They mainly study the Sefirot, which are just way later emanation. And they stayed away mainly from these upper high points because until, and I'm going to speak real plainly, I guess, for just like a millisecond, but until that video that was released, which reconciles the matter of the heresy, almost everyone who went into that place fell into heresy. Almost everybody. Because until you understand that the Tzimtzum is bringing forth what the opposite of God, everything becomes heretical. Any type of understanding like derived from that place is like antithetical to God. But if you understand that the restriction is within inside of the endless, and within inside of the endless is a place where evil is brought to existence, or what God is not is brought into existence, right? If we understand that part, then it reconciles all the difficulties. Like, why do we suffer? Why do we die, right? Once you understand that we are the opposite of God and not what God is, even though he's the underlying animator of all of this existence. But once you understand we're the opposite, then you can understand why we're birthed. Then you can understand why we die. Then you can understand why we make mistakes. We can understand why we suffer. We can understand why we're limited. Then you can understand why there are worlds, why there are upper beings and lower beings, right? Which are all completely antithetical to a unified singularity. But if you were to draw those partzufs, like you see here in the restriction itself, as they're presented, because when we see them, they're censored. This is one of the reasons why they're censored, right? Because there's anthropomorphism. Immediately you would begin to see, wait a minute, that's a thing, right? We don't really think of it like that. We try to abstract it into these bizarre concepts of like lights and vessels, and we say lights and vessels as if that somehow like cools the idea of this extremely heretical statement, lights and vessels. What vessels? What are vessels? Things. We say it because it appeases the linear brain of the human being, but it does not void you of this difficulty. It just is like, okay, I think I understand what it means, so I'm not going to think about it. But nonetheless, this is a first real understanding of what's going on at the highest level. And this is why it says like the limbs of Adam Harishon fell. Okay, our sages say his limbs fell. What do you mean his limbs fell? Well, when you understand his limbs are these various partzufs, then you understand these like various partzufs fell, as it were. Certain parts of, more particularly Zorainpin and the attached partzufs fell. Because Zorainpin is the level of the limbs, and that's what fell. But that's a much more advanced topic. So, page 5. Just as the rose Bina has 13 petals, so the congregation of Israel Malchus surrounded by 13 attributes of mercy. Surrounded hints to the circular aspect of the spheros which surround. So on page 4, when you saw the restriction in the circular, right, we see that there are 13 petals, as it were, that surround Malchus because of concentric circles. They surround each other in concentric circles, and they refer to the 10 spheres of Asiya. The 11th is the Keter of Yetzirah, the 12th is the Keter of Beriah, and the 13th Keter of Atzilus. They surround the assembly of Israel because we're talking about Igolim. We're talking about the restriction. So you have to understand that the Zohar is actually telling us about the restriction right here. It's using veiled language. What does it mean 13 things surround? You mean these Partzufim that surround Malkut? Because at first it's talking about 13 petals, which is a linear aspect, which we can even, I mean, you could argue and say that that's circular too, right? But nonetheless, the general conception is that the first thing being mentioned is talking about the 13 partzufs. The second thing is these 13 things surround Malchus. That is talking about the restriction, because and it's very important for us to understand the concept being laid down here, because now we can understand where the Zohar is at and what we're talking about right now. Thus, between the first mention of the word Elokim and the second mention of Elokim, there are 13 words, and they are Et HaShemayim va'et Haaretz Chayta Tov v'bochu v'chashek opnei tahom v'ruach. These are the 13 words. What's the purpose of bringing down these 13 words? Because this describes the shattering of the vessels, right? The death of the kings of Edom are being described right in those 13 words. When you guys open up Apples from the Orchard and you read what the Arizal says, he says Merach Hefet is died 288, and then it says the Torah then begins to describe the creation of the kings. Okay, he even talks about the head of the Atik. Oh, the light of the 63, this thing coming out of his eyes, this thing coming out of his ears, this thing coming out of his mouth. Like, what are you talking about? This anthropomorphism of this supernal Godhead that's emanating these lights of all of these worlds. Like, what is that head? Well, that's what Likutei deals with. When you read Likutei, you understand what the head is. Because before Likutei, the head has never fully been extrapolated. And sure, Eitz Chaim has descriptions of it, but if you go read Eitz Chaim itself, Chaim Vital self-admits in the Sefer that anything he's about to write regarding these matters are 100% theoretical. They're not deadlocked, which means that you cannot take those things he's saying as the absolute fact. He says it himself that it's all, those things are theoretical. He doesn't have the true levels, and he gives a variety of different explanations, not one. So it's not deadlocked into some kind of system. That's why I say that the Lurianic Kabbalah is incomplete. It's incomplete because it's not fleshed out at those levels. It's not fleshed out at those levels. Nonetheless, the first word of the Torah hints to Chokmah, which is Bereshis, right? And the second ones are Bara Elokim, which hints to Bina. Now we see that the first verse is mirroring the first passage of the Zohar, because Rebbe Hezekiah Petach is synonymous with the word Bereshis. Keshoshan Bina Chochim is synonymous with Bara Elokim. Okay, and now the 13 words between Elokim and Elokim are the 13 petals that the Zohar just mentioned, and the 13 surrounding aspects between the two, and that and Melchus. The word Bereshis hints to Chokmah, as it is written Reshis Chokmah. The beginning is wisdom, Chokmah. Bara hints to all the Beriah, the spirits of Bina. The name Elokim here is the name of God referring to Bina. The following 13 words hint to the attributes of bestowed to Malchus from Bina. The second Elokim refers to Malchus. These 13 words describe the shattering of the vessel which took place. The word Hashemayim, the heavens, hints to this. The letter He has a value of 5. The word Shemayim consists of the word fire, Esh, and Mayim, water. These 5 fires and waters are the spreading of the 5 Chesidim and 5 Gevuros. This causes the external vessels to be destroyed, which are called the kings, right? So you got to see. So just think of like concentric circles. Okay, think about layers of an onion. The outer husk is going to be Malkut. The outer husk is Malchus. This is the kings. This outer husk is going to be destroyed. So if Malchus is synonymous with a Nefesh, what's the next level above it? Ruach. And so then what's the internal level? Ruach. So then if the kings died or the external vessels died, which are the Malkuts of all these aspects, which is why it says the earth, right? The external vessels were destroyed, their tohu, bochus, etc. What was exposed then? The Ruach, the internal level. This is why it says Ruach Elokim, Merachefet, Olpaneto Chamaim. The spirit, the Ruach of Elokim, vibrated over the waters. Because what were the waters? The waters were the Chasidim.
that destroyed the external vessels, which were the kings. This is why the Holy One, blessed be, cannot create the world through what? Chesed. Why? Because our sages say that the worlds were destroyed by Chesed. The first world was created through Chesed and it was destroyed. What was it hinting to? The spreading of the Hasidim. This is why when you give birth, what happens first with a woman? The water breaks. And what follows this? Blood. Gevura. The Gevuros. You have to see that what's happening here. Okay, these incredible levels. This level, until I revealed it here, and this key I'm telling you about the 5 fires and the 5 waters being the secret of the 5 Hasidim and the 5 Gevuros spreading in this place, which led to the breaking of the kings, is not in the Lurianic corpus at all. At all. You're not going to find it reading Eitzheim or in any of these sephers. Go read Likutei. Go read Apples from the Orchard, which is a compilation of all the Arizal's writings there, and go look at what it says about Genesis. You're not going to read any of this stuff. These keys were not accessible. And because these keys were not accessible, this is why I say that nobody knows any of these things, and nobody really understands the nature of the Zohar, because essentially one of the things that have to be done is a new chidush, right? You need to create new interpretations of the Torah to create new firmaments. The Zohar says, you are my partner. You have to create these new interpretations to create these new heavens. But there's a proper way of exegesis. All of these Kabbalists, they're not really Kabbalists because they're not really expounding the Torah at all. They're not making it applicable, like Rabbi Akiva said. They're not interpreting it further for the generation, but rather outside of the Peshat levels, right? There's 50 million halachot behind every single thing. You know, a cell phone comes out, they're going to tell you 50 million laws about the phone can do this, phone can't do that. Got a car, it's running on gas. Well, what if it runs on water? If it runs on water, can you drive it on Shabbat? What if it has no electricity? What I mean, like, these are these weird questions like this, right? There's 50 million things regarding these levels, but this other level that I'm talking about is there's not really any chidushim on this. Everything that's being written about are being recycled based off of what they're saying. They're not going outside they're not creating new chidushim. They're not creating new interpretations. They're keeping it deadlocked and just simply, I've read it here in the words of the Ari, or the words of Chaim Vital, and that's what it is. And they're just simply recycling that. They're not going any deeper than that. But here, for the first time ever, these reconciliations are being made and explaining how the kings actually died through the spreading of the Hasidim, the Gevuros. This caused the external vessels to be destroyed, which were called the kings and Malkuth of each aspect, referring to the vessels. And so it states the earth was formless and void, etc., hinting to this matter. The Sophist letters of Vachoshek opening to home spell the word Kalim. Kaf from Vachoshek, Lamed from Al, Yud from Paneh, and Mem from Tachom. That's the word Kalim, or vessels, that were shattered and descended into the 4 levels of the Klipos, which are Tohu, Bohu, Vachoshek, opening to home, which are void, darkness, formless, void, darkness, and deep. These are called the death of the kings, in example Malkut, which was and the earth. This was the external vessels, and so the internal aspect called the Ruach, or spirit, was exposed, and so this is the spirit of Elohim. So we can see on page 6 this exact thing being shown, right? The external vessels are essentially being destroyed, shattered, as it were, and the sparks of the Nukva, which is Malkut, and all the externalities of the vessels, which are all aspects of Malchus, which are called the 7 kings, because the word king is Melech. They call 7 kings of Edom. And Edom is just Adam. Adam is Adam with a Vav, hinting to this mystery I'm talking about here. So, prologue verse 2. So that's just verse 1. So the first one of the Zohar, when you understand it at this level, why does it say there's 13 words between Elohim and Elohim? And what does that mean? Right? So we see that, in fact, it's actually talking about the shattering of the vessels. What does it mean 13 words surround? Well, we're talking about the restriction. So we begin to start to see what's being brought down. And this is just the first verse. I mean, the first little parsha there. So prologue, verse 2. After this name Elohim is mentioned another time in the passage, Elohim moved over, Ruach Elohim. And why is mentioned again in order to bring out 5 rigged leaves that surround the rose. As these 5 leaves represent the 5 gates of salvation, and the secrets written about in the verse, I'll raise up the cup of salvation. This is the cup of benediction that is raised after the meal. The cup of benediction must rest on 5 fingers and no more. Just as the rose rests on 5 wicked leaves that represent the 5 fingers, and this rose is the cup of blessing, benediction. From the second and third mention of the name Elohim, there are 5 words. And from this point, let there be light. This light was created and concealed and enclosed within the covenant. Enter the rose, they fructify it. And this is referred to as a fruit tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself. And this is the breed, the covenant. So the 5 words that follow between the second mention of Elohim and the third mention of Elohim refer to the 5 primary Partzufim, Arikain, Pin, Abba, Ima, Zerim, Pin, and Nukva. But really, it refers to the lights, which will be explained in the next line here. These 5 words are 5 rigid leaves, which are 5 primary Partzufim that surround the rose. They correspond to the 5 worlds, Adam, Kadmon, Atzilus, Beriah, Yetzir, and Asiya, which represent the 5 gates of salvation. These 5 are also the 5 primary Sephiros that surround Tiferes, and this is the cup of salvation. Chesed, Gevurah, Tifres, Netzach, Hod, and Isad, which here are being personified by the 5 fingers. These 5 plus the cup are 6. Surrounding the rose is 7. And this refers to the world of the chariot, which is called the Midos, and the 7 forms. They exist first as 5 lights, corresponding to Yechida, Chaya, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. And this is hinted at by the word Merochefet, which are the letters Memtav, died, Resh Fechet, 288. This was hinted at in the beginning of the head letters. And these refer to 72, 60, 45, and 52 names that correspond to the worlds of Atzilus, Beriah, Yetzir, and Asiya. They died, that is to say they descended. So on page 8, we can see the 5 lights, right? So these 5 words that are in between the first and the second are talking about 5 lights. And there's 2 lights. There's called Or Yashar and there's Or Choser, returning light. Now, when the light returns, these 5 lights become 5 Partzufs, right? But until that light returns, they do not take on the Partzufim of Arikain, Pin, Abba, Ima, Zerim, Pin, and Nukva. Right now, the 5 that are mentioned in between the second Elohim and third Elohim are talking about the 5 lights. Okay, this is why it's going to say, what does it say? And there was light. Yehi or vayehi or. What does it mean, light? Well, light or is numerical value of the word Ein Sof, endless. So it's talking about the lights coming in from the endless, the 5. Yechida, Chaya, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. And then on page 9, we have the cup of blessing. The cup of blessing refers to the lower 7 spheros, which form a cup. The word Baruch, blessing, base, Rish, Kaf, hints to Keter Chokmah Bina, right? Base is Bina, Resh is Rashis Chokmah, and Kaf is Keter. These pour in 2 types of wine. One is white, an example on the side of Chokmah, and red is from the side of Bina. So red and white wine pour into this cup, talking about the world of the chariot, the Midos. Okay, and it says, I will lift up the cup of blessing, which we talked about. This lifting of the cup hints to this. Now the word kus, cup, has a numerical value of 86, which is Elohim. This is because Malchus, or reality, or the Nukva, must be lifted. This is what the verse says. And I will lift up your name, and the word name is a key word for Malkut, Nukva. I will lift up your name above the heavens, meaning above Zorin Pin. You have to lift the name above the heavens. Because if the heavens are here, then it's going to cause a bunch of problems. If it's the ruling factors, you have to lift the name, you have to live reality above the heavens. What does this mean? You need to lift reality above your midot. People have been falling into this trap where they think you need to go into your midot. Everything is midot. No. That place is a trap. It's 7 royal houses of idolatry. Right? Because everything there is just subjective truth. You need to flee from subjective truth like it's the plague. Because it is the plague. It causes Sarah, it causes leprosy to the spiritual soul. You want to flee away from subjective truths. What is a subjective truth? That's a personal truth. Just because you think something does not mean it's real. And that is what the forms do. That's what the heaven is. The heaven is all nothing but subjectivity. You need to flee away from that stuff. Objective truth means truth that is exists without your acknowledgement, right? It's not there's nothing subjective about it at all. means you don't even exist in the world of objective truth. There is nothing to add to it in the world of objective truth, right? For example, the sun rises. That doesn't depend on how you feel about it. Oh, I feel that. No, that's subjective. That objectivity has nothing to do with subjective personal emotions and how you feel, and you have a bad day, and I don't know enough, and none of that's relevant, right? And you have to see how the midos are a trap. You want to avoid that type of thinking because it's called a net. And there's 7 levels of Gehinnom because of this. What are the 7 levels of Gehinnom? There's 7 royal houses of idolatry. There are these 6. Yes, these 7 are an abomination to my soul. The Torah, Hashem calls these things an abomination. And yet, this is unfortunately, as much as I love Chassidus, and I do absolutely love Chassidus, they focus everything about the rectifying of these midot. Why? Why is everything about rectification of midot? There is a secret to that. I revealed it yesterday. I revealed that why are we waiting for Mashiach, right? Why can't Israel save the world? Because they can't. Because they can't. And so they should rectify their midot. Why? So they can be humble when they receive the light. So they have vessels to receive the light, vessels of reception. That's why they should focus on the midot. Because in absence of objective truth, which is what is provided by Melech HaMashiach, is objective truth, everything is subjective. And so therefore you should work on how you perceive reality to understand the Olam HaShecher, this world of lies. The world of lies is because your entire idea of self is a lie. Right? It's a complete lie. Whatever you think you are, that's a lie. It's perception. Perception itself is a lie. Why? Because perception is reality as it is perceived. Everything you are experiencing is an amalgamation of collective perception. It's not real. None of it is real. Go to sleep tonight and try and think about going to work tomorrow. Go to sleep tonight and think about whether your feet are hanging off under the bed. Go to sleep tonight and think about you're going to eat breakfast in the morning. Go to sleep at night and think about the tree outside. Like, none of that is going to occur because all that stuff is just subjective perception, and that perception doesn't go into the heavens with you. Go to sleep and try and think about your family. You're not going to be able to, unless specifically the heavens, unless you specifically go up there. There's a direct message for you, and they allow you to understand those things in the heavens. So, for example, you have a dream about such and such person, but try and have a random dream and think about going to work tomorrow. Try to think about politics. You're not going to, because that entire illusion isn't permitted to go into that realm because it's sheker. It's a lie. Here's a prime example of this. Like, let's say we're all sitting in a room and we have an apple in the middle of the table, and everyone just starts describing the apple. One guy's like, it's red. Another guy's like, I see a leaf. Another guy's like, I see a little bruise. Another guy's like, I see a sticker, right? There's actually a little yellow spot. But the reality is none of those things are real. All of that is just our perception of the apple. But only the apple itself is real. That's the objective truth. The objective truth is the apple's existence. We don't experience apple's existence. And so then, therefore, because we don't experience apple's existence, everything we're experiencing of it is a perception, is a half-truth. That half-truth is a lie. So we have to understand that concept about the level of the midos. You have to lift up the name above the heaven. It means you need to lift up reality beyond your personal feelings, your personal thoughts, and all the subjective truths. Because the subjective truths are the root of all suffering. It's the root of suffering. A failing of understanding the true nature of reality causes suffering. This is very important, key. So, as the cup of blessing, I will lift up the cup of blessing, and these are called the 5 gates of salvation. We'll talk about it a little bit here. So, this is the cup of benediction, kushel bracha. The cup refers to lower 7 spheros, which are the 7 forms that receive the influx of Ab and Ima, which are 2 types of wine, being red and white. The word blessing, bracha, hints to Keter, Chokmah, and Bina, that enter the cup, the 7 forms. Thus, the letters blessing, benediction hint to this. Bina, Reshis, Chokmah, Keter. That's the head letters. Bracha. It rests on 5 fingers, which are divided 5 regular leaves, because the totality of the 10 spheros are divided in between 5 partzufim. So, Keter is a Rikain pin, Chokmah is Abba, Bina is Ima, the lower 6 is Zerain pin, and Nukva is Malchus. Right? So these 10 spheros are divided between 5. And this lily is the cup of benediction, referring to the body parts of the king. So what is the lily now? The Zohar is going to tell us right here. Vayet Hanan. So we're going to go to book 22. This is in book 22. You got to think. The Zohar, if you see the Kabbalah Center of the Zohar, it's massive. It's an incredibly intimidating text. People think like Harry Potter and stuff is long. It goes 8 books, 9 books. No. Zohar, 22 books. It's 23, but the 23rd is an index. There's 22 books of dense reading. Incredibly dense cryptic reading. So you got to get all the way to book 22. How many people actually get to book 22? Virtually nobody. The amount of people in this generation that have gotten to book 22 are very, 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 very few. Very few. I know there's study groups and things like that. You know, maybe there's 1,000, right, that have read the Zohar. And then out of those 1,000, out of billions of people on the planet, how many have understood it? None. I know for a fact none have understood it. I know because the most important keys in order to access the mysteries have not been revelated. And because they haven't been revelated, how could you possibly enter? So this brings up to my second problem, which I touched on last night, is the importance of straying away from your ideas. Because remember, subjective truth and objective truth. You need to stay with objective truth, right? The center column is yellow. That's an objective truth. You pee yellow. That doesn't care about how you feel about it or think about it. You're gonna pee yellow. That's not your brain will fail you, but you peeing yellow is not gonna fail you. You're gonna pee yellow. Your stomach acid is gonna be yellow. Your phlegm in your lungs yellow. That's objective truth. It's not dependent on how you feel about how you think about it. Subjective truths, though, right? I experienced God. Okay, you didn't actually experience God. You experienced whatever your idea of that was of God. And when you start experiencing ideas, you're delusional, crazy, Meshuggah. You're an insane person, right? I'm my experiences. No, your sum of experiences. Your idolatry is what that is. You want to avoid that. Lift up the name above the heavens. Lift up reality above the heavens. Stay in objective truth. Keep the ladder grounded. Stay in truth, objective truths. Do not go into ideas, and don't supplant ideas with, objective truths with ideas. It's the most dangerous thing in the world. The most dangerous force in the universe is not a truth or a lie. It's a half truth, because a half truth can have the conviction of truth, and this is a very dangerous thing, especially when people with ideas. Very careful about ideas. That's why even in exegesis, when you start talking about the Torah, you stay away from ideas. You stay in the realm of proper exegesis. You can have ideas, but ideas have to have sources, proofs, objective proofs, right? You need math. You need to demonstrate with das. That's how it's not subjective. It becomes objective, right? I can say, Bereshis is Chokmah, right? But that's because the objective verse says Rashis Chokmah, and therefore that's proper, right? But then someone else can say, Bereshis is talking about the God Ra. Where did you get that? Right, you got that from ideas, subjective truth. That's your own personal truth. That's what you think. But when you take subjective truth and apply that as objective truth, you become an idolater. Right? Very dangerous thinking like that. And when you think you understand things without objective understandings, right? If you have objective understandings, that's a different story, right? You can sit there and lay down that women produce red and men produce white, and you can stand on that hill all day because it doesn't change. That is okay, right? Because you're founded in, that's unmovable. But when you start laying in your subjective truths, personal truths, you gotta avoid that stuff, guys. You gotta avoid it. It's very dangerous because you go crazy. Because because if you build your foundation off of subjective truths, you're building a giant house of lies. Building a house on sand, no foundation at all. You build your house on a stone house, meaning objective truths don't move, not sand, subjective truths. Because if you start off with one subjective truth, then you got to get to another subjective truth and another subjective truth and another subjective truth and another subjective truth until you're crazy. And it's Olam HaSheker, it's a whole house of lies. Everything you think, everything you're talking about, all the information you're drawing from is your craziness. You avoid that, like the plague. So that's what. So I bring that back up to the reason why I bring that is because nobody's understood the Zohar properly. This is why Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says his generation and the generation of Mashiach. Every generation between this and that fell into error. They fell into error, and to this day, they're all in error. There's no Kabbalistic system that is fleshed out. It's all error. None of them grounded it down. Does it mean that they don't have truth? Yes. And they're very smart because they stay within the realms of what they understand to be true, and they don't try to understand what they don't understand. Right? Which I can completely respect. And so in doing that, by not trying to understand what they don't understand, they ultimately avoid this subjective problem. But by that same logic, they also don't have the answers. They can't have the answers. It's not possible. There's a variety of reasons for that. For example, I'll give you a spirit of wisdom, spirit of understanding, spirit of knowledge, right? Who is the spirit of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge? It's only given to Melech HaMashiach. The sages say that. So then that means no one has wisdom, no one has understanding, no one has knowledge. If they did have wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, counsel, might, and the awe of Hashem, that person would be Mashiach, but they're not. Oh, but my rabbi, no, your rabbi doesn't know. I'm sorry. my teacher, no, your teacher doesn't know. This guy's a Kabbalist. No, he's not. Because if he was a Kabbalist, then he'd be making prophets. And prophets would be having ecstatic experiences of God. Any one of you that have been around this material and have experienced the real teachings of Likutei know what I'm talking about. Without question, every person here, I would imagine, has experienced that type of ecstaticism at some point, from seeing and beholding the illimitable. You can see very clearly then how that type of light could create a prophet. Because a prophet can experience the divine and not understand how it's happening. That's what's called a murky mirror. As I said, the prophets look through a murky mirror, right? You can see exactly how that happens. Imagine, all of a sudden you wake up, you see tree on top of tree, Aleph Mem Shin, yellow, red, white, right? You go into a prophetic experience immediately. Okay, continue on. The lilies are a mystery. When these body parts are connected together so as to be all one by means of one meditation, okay, by one meditation, according to the secret of the offering, the Holy One, blessed be He, is adorned with a crown of fine gold so as to be adorned with His honor. This is the meaning behind the word lilies, which is the secret of all the body parts above and below. This is exactly what the commentary showed you above. I showed you, okay, the lilies, and then all of a sudden we're seeing this like body in the middle of the endless, which are the body parts of the king. Because what was the lily really? The body parts of the king. But you got to get to book 22 to figure this out. The secret of that gold is that it is a crown adorned and rises from among them. There is everything in them. Why is everything in them? Because the body parts of the king are all of the worlds. And all of the worlds are the body parts of the king. Right? So now we start to understand what the rose really is. Because in our minds, again, this is how the sages guard these secrets. How do they guard the secrets? By subjective truths. The flaw isn't in the writing. The flaw is in the perception of the reader. If you're not worthy if you do not merit to know, you will be blinded by it. As an example, it's not that you'll understand what the Zohar is really saying, but rather you'll think that you understand what the Zohar is saying. And because you think you understand what the Zohar is really saying, you thus are locked out from actually knowing what it is saying. Okay? A famous quote: "It is not intended that they should know the truth, but rather it is intended they should imagine they understand the truth." Okay? Again, that's that subjectivity right there. You got to be very cautious about these levels. The Zohar is clearly just revealed to us the body parts of the king. Now we understand what the Partzufs are, the body parts of the king. And this brings down to the commentary. And we're just in the second verse of the Zohar. This is the depth. It's madness, right? Well, if you don't know properly how to enter in, yeah, 100%. So this cup refers to the lower seven Sefirot, which are the body of the king, and corresponds to the two arms, Chesed Gevurah, the torso Tiferes, the two legs, Netzach and Hod, and the reproductive organ Yisod. After this light was created, it was concealed and enclosed within the covenant and entered the lily and fructified. It is referred to as a fruit tree yielding fruit, whose seed is in itself, and this seed is the covenant. So it's Yechior, Veyechior, Veyera. These 5 words refer to the returning lights. Thus, these 5 words between the 3rd mention and the 4th mention of Elohim are let there be light, the straight light. Yechior is the straight light. That was the first light of the 5 that came down, right? Which is Echida, Chaya, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh. And there was light because the light returned. Vayechior, because the light went up. And so it says, and there was light and saw, the level of Atzilus called sight, and this returning light guarded the first lights that entered in, being Yechida, Chai, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh, and Partzufim, which are Rikain, Pin, Abba, Ima, Zarim, Pin, Nukva. The word light, or as a numerical Vav, Ein Sof, the endless, the place where the light ascends. So now when it says these 5 words in between this mention of Elohim and this mention of Elohim is the light sowed, right? Vayomer Elohim, and then we say Yehi or, Vayehi or, Vayera. What does this mean? It means Yehi or, let there be light. An example, the 5 lights of Yechida, Chaya, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh, that's let there be light. Because light is value Ein Sof. So these are 5 lights coming down from the Ein Sof. And there was light because the light went back up, which is exactly what Vayechi Or says. Our sages say, oh, Vayechi Or, there was light, yeah, because it went away, it went back up. And then they say it was stored in the world to come for the righteous. What does it mean, stored in the world to come? What it means is that the light went up and it took on 5 partzufs. It became a Rikaim Pin, Abba, Ima, Zarim, Pin, Nukva. It's called Or Choser, returning light. And it garbed in the 5 partzufs. So therefore, on the bottom of page 11, we actually see this understanding. Now, this hints to another thing that I said last night when I was talking about the level of the Lurianic Kabbalah, that before Likutei, the Lurianic corpus was the most advanced corpus of Kabbalah, and that you had to understand all 4 levels of understanding. You had to have a complete mastery of theological Kabbalah. You needed to know Kabbalah, Maaseh Mechavot. You needed to understand the Hechalot. You need to understand palaces and the meditative techniques. And to a certain degree, some things about Kabbalah Masit, but not Kabbalah Masit in terms of like talismans and kameot and things like that, but Kabbalah Masit in the aspect of like, how does this apply to reality? Because technically, Likutei is 100% Kabbalah Masit, right? Because it's not just theological Kabbalah, which would be the first school. It's practical Kabbalah because you see UP yellow. You see the woman producing red and the men producing white, and the white the man produces in the secret of life, and you see tree on top of tree, and you see that's practical Kabbalah. That's not theological. There's nothing theological about that. That's not first school at all. It's third school. Right? So that's one of the beautiful things of that. But you can see why in order to even touch these levels, really, you have to have a mastery over Lurianic Kabbalah. And Lurianic Kabbalah is the inner levels of the Zohar, which means that you have to understand the Midrash, you need to understand the Talmud, right, the Mishnah, and you need to understand the Torah, and you need to understand, once you understand all those levels, then you need to understand the Zohar, then you need to understand the Lurianic Kabbalah, because that's the level above the Zohar, then you can understand Likutei. That's the level Likutei is at. Now, Likutei is a beautiful text because it takes the highest light, brings the lowest. So you can know nothing and learn from Likutei. But if you really want to know the depth of Likutei, you would have to study all of this material before you can truly appreciate what you've been given. Because it's not until you've hit these extreme levels of the advanced Lurianic Kabbalah that you can even begin to fathom, to understand what you're being exposed to. Despite the fact that Likutei makes accessible to anybody, meaning you could know nothing, know zero Kabbalah, and understand Likutei. I won't mention who this person is, but it's a very predominant person. I'm not going to mention his name for censorship reasons, but it's a very predominant person in the Orthodox world. And he said of Likutei, Likutei is the tree, the trunk, which every other Kabbalistic work is a branch of. He said that if a person only studied Likutei, it'd be enough. If they just studied Likutei and no Kabbalistic, never been exposed to anything else, they just studied the one text, it'd be enough. because they would be able to go from that text to every other text and understand it. One of the things I like about Benny, most people don't know about it, he was in Bnei Baruch for like 13 years. They're very, very advanced. That's from Yehuda Ashlag's system, right? Talmud Esther Sefirot. But he's here. Why is he here? He studied Talmud Esther Sefirot, is the most advanced Louisiana Kabbalah, 13 years in Israel. But he's over here. That should give you a glimpse at the level where Likutei is actually at. So continuing on, it's one of the reasons why I'm writing this commentary now, because it really needed a Likutei in order to start understanding the Zohar. Because without Likutei, you can't really understand the Zohar. You can think you know, but not really know. You need the keys to go in. So the following words are Etar Kitov. And Elohim saw light that it was good. The final letters here spell the word bris, covenant, right? The final letters are Eta or Kitov. The word Et, the light, Eta or, has numerical value of bris, covenant. This covenant and light hints to 613 body parts of the supernal king, as is written, he wraps himself in light. This again hints to the word Shoshana, right? So what were the lily or the rose? It was the rose or the lilies are the body parts of the king, or 613 body parts. This is why it's talking about sowing in the covenant, because the word covenant is in Kalel 613. This covenant hints to the body parts of the king, which was just being talked about. And it says, and it was sowed in light. The covenant was sowed in light, because should you go to the verse where it says Eta or Kitov, you see that the final words, the letters are the letters for covenant. Thus, the Zohar is telling us, and these 5 words, and then it talks about the light and sowed in the covenant. So you can see that the Zohar is actually describing the creation. They are divided between 365 negative precepts and 248 positive precepts, which are 365 aspects of flesh, 248 spiritual bones. The term fruit tree, yielding fruit whose seed is within itself, hints to the level called tree, worlds, fruit, Sefirot, and seed, Partzufim, by which all exegesis is discoursed. This is the level of the Mother's Torah, because the Mother's Torah is synonymous with the garden, and the trees are in the garden, but the trees are what? The trees are fruit tree, which are the worlds, yielding fruit, Sefirot, whose seed is within itself, Partzufim. So tree, fruit, seed. That's what the garden is. And the garden, there's a man there. No, man is a tree. That's what's written. So tree, worlds, fruit, Sephiros, seed, zera, zeranpin. Right? So prologue verse 3. So this is another thing. What is spilling seed? So people are like, oh yeah, you're spilling seed on the ground. No, spilling seed. The word zera is zerainpin. Zerainpin. Because you know what zera really is? Seed. Zain ra. 7 evils. You know what the 7 evils are? There's 7 royal houses of idolatry. Why? Because it's written, what can I take as a witness to you? What can I liken to you? I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you this day. Because I will lift up your name above the heavens. Name is reality above the heavens, above my midos. You know why? Because reality is the witness of the endless. This is the likeness of God. I will take what every single day, which we're going to talk about because Zohar is going to get into it, so I'm not going to go too deep into it here. But just remember what I just said, because it's going to be there. So prologue verse 3. And just as a covenant is sown by 42 matings from that same seed, so the engraved and holy name is sown by 42 letters that describe the works of creation. The 42 matings refer to the coupling of the 2 Partzufim of Abba and Ima, which are both called Ehyeh. It's 21 plus 21. The 2 names have value 42. That's one level of understanding. Those are the 2 wines going in the cup. The 42 letter name of God correspond to the 42 letters of the Torah from base of Bereshis to base of Bohu. Using a series of ciphers, the keys are revealed because the 42 letter name of Hashem, the Anim B'choach, are the first 42 letters of the Torah. This seed refers to Yisod of Zerainpin as the word Zerah, seed, hence to Zer. And it is known the 42 letter name is formed by groups of 6 letters divided between the 7 spheros, which total 42. So when it says this seed, right, was sown, it's talking about Zerainpin, because Zerainpin is called the seed. And it was sown in 42 couplings because a 42 letter name corresponds to 6 times 7. And these 6 times 7 hint to Bereshis. So everything is talking about Zerainpin, even though there's specifics, as we've talked about, the levels from Adam Kadmon below. But remember, the kings that died were 7 in number. And so in reality, even though all of these specific details are given, the generalized main portion of it is dealing with the 7 kings, which are Zorampin. Okay, so we'll move through this section 2 and we'll conclude. All right, section 2, the flower buds. So in the beginning, Bereshit, Rabbi Shimon quoted the verse, the flower buds appear on the earth. The flower buds refer to the act of creation. They appear on the earth, wane on the 3rd day, as it is written, and the earth brought forth. Since then, they have been seen on the earth. The time of the singing bird pruning is come. This alludes to the 4th day, which is the pruning of tyrants took place. Therefore, this day it is written, let there be luminaries. With the letter Vav missing from the word luminaries, thus it refers to a curse. And the voice of the turtle dove refers to the 5th day, about which it is written, let the waters swarm, so they can produce offspring. Is heard refers to the 6th day, of which is let us make man. Who shall put action before listening? Because it says here, let us make man, while on Mount Sinai, when Hashem asked Israel about the Torah, they said, we will do and obey. In our land, this refers to the day of Shabbat, which represents the land of life, which is the world to come. So in the beginning, Bereshit here refers to Chokmah, the world of Atzilus. The flower buds appear on the earth. The word flower bud is similar to the word sparks. The earth here referring to the kings that descended from the world of Atzilus into the world of Berea, which are called the acts of creation. As is known, the entire creation takes place in the world of Berea, hinted by the term created, Berah, which hints to the world of Berea. So the word flower buds is very similar to the word for sparks. Appear on the earth, which refers to the 3rd day. This hints to the emergence of Malchus and Tiferet at the same time. On this day it is written, let the earth bring forth grass, Eshev. And regarding the 7th day it is written, now there was no shrub of the field yet on the earth, and no grass. This hints that the post-7th day, meaning the story of the garden, Malchus, is connected to the 3rd day. Because it says there was no, why mention there's no shrub of the field and on the earth and no grass? What's the point of even mentioning that? Right? We read the creation story, and then all of a sudden, and there was no shrub of the field and there's no grass. But Lord God did not cause it to rain. Like, what are you talking about? But this is to tell us that the 7th day is synonymous with the 3rd day, because the 3rd day is the day when the grass takes place. Thus, the story of the garden follows here as well, because that's when he planted the trees, when the trees created, day 3. As the planting of trees. What does this hint to? Behold, the soda of the matter is found in the 2 nostrils of the nose, which hint to Malchus and Tiferet. Take a look at that. You have 2 eyes, 2 ears, and then you have 2 holes in your nose and a mouth. Because the 7th day is synonymous with the 3rd day. Okay? Because on the 3rd day, it says, let there be grass, etc. And on the 7th day, there was no grass of the field, right? So we read, he rested from his works, but in the following segment tells us there was no grass. Okay? No man to till the ground, etc. Even though it really does say there was no man to till the ground, because that man was the endless man. But that's a different conversation, because it doesn't say there was no man. They could have said no man and they would use a different contextual term, but the word used word ain. Ain. He looked this way and that way and saw no man. No, he looked this way and that way and saw the endless man. Ain ish. That's what he saw. But I digress. So this says that day 7 is happening on day 3, because the story of the garden, which is planting all these trees and etc., 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 is synonymous with what happens on day 3, which is the trees. Same thing with the let there be grass, the same thing there. And so this teaches us that day 7 and day 3 are synonymous with each other. That's why Malchus and Zorampin, which are personified by Tiferet, right, the Nukva and Zorampin, which are our son and daughter, are synonymous as twins. They emerge together in the secret of Tiferet, meaning that Malkuth and Tiferet emerge at the exact same time. This is the secret of the 2 holes in the nose. You have 2 holes in your nose. Like if you take a look at your nose, you have 2 holes. What are those holes? That's the 3rd day and the 7th day. That's what this hints to. The 4th day, the time of the singing of birds of pruning, comes to allude to the 4th day the pruning tyrants took place. This hints to the male and female Leviathan, which are 2, called Leviathan Nachash, or called some Leviathan Nachash Berach. They are identified as the 2 luminaries that is written as the luminaries. The word luminary, Merot, hints to the sun, as it has the same numerical as the word Shemesh, meaning sun. It also means curse, and I should include this in the updated document, but it's written Merot, the curse of Hashem is in the house of the wicked. Base Harashah, the base Rasha, the house of the wicked. The curse, and the word curse there is the exact same word as luminary. spelled the same way, Mem Aleph Resh Tav. The curse of God is in the house of the wicked. It's the exact same spelling, Mem Aleph Resh Tav, as it is here. The word luminaries is spelled deficiently, lacking the Vav. This hints to the reproductive organ and Yesod. Thus our sages said he castrated the male and slayed the female. He castrated the male because he removed the Vav from the sun, which is one of them. And he slayed the female, meaning it descended. This is the moon. That's the the luminaries are the sun and the moon. The moon's light was diminished because he killed, as it were, the female. He slayed it, meaning he diminished it, meaning it descended, because death means descent. And the sun, which is the male, was castrated. So the Vav was missing. And that's what it says. That's what our sages say of the Tanan, right? Castrated the male, slayed the female. These two refer to the ruling force over night and day, respectively, and they are separated. So day 5, with the waters form, hint to the spheros of Hod. The 5th of the spheros corresponding to the testicles, which swarm with living water so they can reproduce, so they can produce offspring. Right. So Netzach and Hod correspond to the ovaries, but it also corresponds to testicles. And so we see the water swarm. Water swarm because that's the place in which living waters are created. And so on the human body, the testicle is where the semen is produced, which is called living water. Day 5, let the waters form. So is heard is refers to 6th day, on which it says, let us create man. This man refers to the man of Berea. It says, who shall put action asiya before listening, Berea. And on Mount Sinai, it says, we will do and listen. The 6th Sefirah is the 6th day being Yesod. And this completes the 6th Sefirot of Zerayim being called Adam. And so we find that man, who are male and female, emerge from the respective reproductive organ, Yesod, in the image of the mother and father, that is to say, male and female. So this is just talk about in the most recent video. So day 6 is Sefirah of Yesod. Let us create man after our image, is because this teaches that man, which is Zakar v'Nukva, male and female, emerged from the reproductive organ, from the swarming of living waters, which is to say the semen that's in the testicles. And it emerges through the reproductive organ, which is Yesod, after our image, which means the image of its parents. Right? So that's the sod of that little key there. In our land refers to the 7th day, which represents the land of life, as it is written, Yod He Vav He, founded the earth in wisdom. This hints that Nukva Vatzilu is called the land of the fathers and the land of the living, and is written, wisdom gives life to its possessor. I will provide another sod to the interpretation matter. So this is from the Elat, which is another extraordinarily esoteric sefer that deals with some of the highest Lurianic Kabbalah. So day 1 is Berea, day 2 is Yetzirah, day 3 is Asiya. So right, Berea, right, that's the first day, Bara. Day 2 Yetzirah, that's firmament. Day 3 is Asiya, that's the earth. Let the earth bring forth. Day 4 is the earth, because it is luminaries over the earth. Day 5 is Yetzirah, that's the water swarming. Day 6 is Berea, that's the man being created. And day 7 is Atzilus, going up. So we're talking. So on another level, we can see the light descending and returning. Okay. Another interpretation of the flowers of the patriarchs that came to thought, mind, and came into the world to come, namely Bina. They were hidden. They emerged from there secretly and hid themselves among the true prophets. Joseph was born, and they hid in him. When Joseph entered the Holy Land, he revealed their presence, and they appear on the earth, and were seen there. And when are the patriarchs seen? When the rainbow is seen in the sky, because this is when they appear. And at that moment, the time of the pruning has come. This means that this is the period to cut the wicked from the world. But why were the wicked saved? Because the flowers appear on the earth. If they had not already appeared so long ago, the wicked would not have remained on the earth, and the world have been destroyed. It is written in the beginning when Israel arose in thought. Thus we're talking about the patriarchs who came to thought, right? Israel refers to 231 gates. For the letters, spell Yesh, Resh, Lamed, Aleph, substance 231. There are 3 concealed heads, as is known, and they are Keter, Hukman, being of the Atik, being Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or. The latter of which is the secret of the 231 gates, hinted at in the patriarchs who were hidden in thought, as the patriarchs represent the tikkuns for the 7 sparks that emerge from this place, as it is explained elsewhere. Thus it says the patriarchs emerged secretly. It's talking about the 7 sparks. So page 16 shows these 7 sparks emerging from the head, meaning emerging from thought, because the patriarchs are the tikkun of the kings, which are called the wicked. Thus it says, and the earth would have been destroyed, and meaning the wicked would have been destroyed. The wicked being destroyed refers to the sparks that were extinguished. That's called the pruning of tyrants, Because remember, pruning, if you remember what I said above, the same word like the word sparks. The flower buds appear. That's the time of pruning of tyrants. And I said the word flower buds is like the word sparks, because the sparks is what it's really referring to, meaning the sparks that emerge from thought, which is exactly what it just stated. And so then the patriarchs appear, which are the correction to the kings, the correction of the sparks, which institute the world of tikkun. When the rainbow appears, this refers to when the light passed through the hard spark hinted at by thought in the above passage. This light refers to the light of Ain that poured in and differentiated itself into the various colors and the spectrum hinted at by the rainbow. When the rainbow appears, because the rainbow are 7 lights, and the 7 lights were after when the light poured into the restriction, it differentiated itself into its various colors. Then it entered into thought, that is to say, the hard spark, and it became 7 kinds of light, which are the patriarchs. And that light, which are the light of the corrections of the Sephiros, descended down to the pruning of tyrants, which were the flower buds, which were the sparks of the kings of Edom that died, which is what the Zohar was talking about in the previous passages, in order to correct them. When this light descended through the hard spark, the 7 sparks down below, which are the kings of Edom that died without weapons, refer to the tyrants. The pruning of tyrants was at hand. So you see page 16, you can see all 3 heads, Keter, Chachma, Bina, and then you see the light passing through the hard spark, which is the head of the king, and then you see it descending down to bring about the corrections. And these 7 are divided in between 5 Partzufs, as it was stated above, Arifin, Pin, Abba, Imazar, Pin, Nukva, etc. If the light did not descend to provide correction to the sparks, then the world would have been destroyed, hinting to the kings called world and earth, all of which were aspects of Malchus called king. Verse 6. And who sustains the world and causes the patriarchs to appear as the voices of children who study the Torah? And the world is saved from destruction for their sake, and these children, in deference of them, is written, we will make necklets of gold. This refers to the children, boys and young men, as is written, and you shall make 2 cherubs of gold. The children here refers to Zraim, Pin, and Nukva, who study the Torah and example the lights of Atzilus, which are the corrections that occur in this place. Of them it is written, behold, you are the head of gold. For these emerge in the secret of the face of Atik, right? And also in the secret of the head, and descend to the corrections of his body. And so it is written, they are necklets of gold, hinting beneath the face. Zeraim, Pin, and Nukva are the 2 cherubs of gold. And the lower world, they are garbed in Metatron and Sandalphon. So Zeraim, Pin is garbed in Metatron later on, and Nukva is garbed in Sandalphon later on. But the necklets of gold hint to this correction from the head of gold. That is to say, the head of the Atik, the place where the lights had passed through and made a connection, which was there, studying the Torah, meaning the corrections, right? Last portion. So section 3, who created these? In the beginning, Bereshit, Rabbi Eleazar began the discussion by quoting, lift your eyes on high, and behold, who has created these? He asked, lift up your eyes on high, to what place? He replies, to that place which all eyes are turned. And who is he that created all things? He is the opening of the eyes. And there you shall know that this concealed Atika, to which a question can be applied, who has created these? And who is he? He is called who, which is formed from between the two Hebrew letters Mem and Yod that appear in the name Elohim. He is called from the end of heaven on high, as everything is in his domain. And since one can ask about him and he is concealed and not revealed, he is called who. Because beyond him, one may not pose questions. The end of heaven is called who. Thus, when people say, who is your rabbi? My answer is always, who indeed? And who will help you indeed? Right? I once had a person who was mockingly saying, well, who's not going to support me? Who's not going to feed me? Right? Who's going to pay my bills? Who's going to get me food? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Well, okay, if you got it there, hotshot, then who isn't going to help you? Because you think you have remedies. You think you have hope. And as long as you think you have remedies and hope, who is far from you? But if you know you have no remedy and no existence, who then will help you? Right? Who will uphold you and save you? Lift up your eyes. The term eyes in every plural place refers to the 7 eyes of Hashem, as it is written. So it says, lift up your eyes. Right? What is Zohar talking about? It's about your midot. You need to look up your subjective. You need to a wise man's eyes are in his own head, And you need to remove yourself from your 7 houses of idolatry, your 7 eyes, looking at everything, judging everything, seeing things through your emotions and your desires and all the midot. You need to get out of that. And you need to lift up your eyes. Lift up those 7 eyes and look up and see who created these. So what are the 7 eyes? Either Rabbah. From the red in the eye emerge 7 runners that support the left side and glow in the fire of the north side. They are attached to the red color in order to expand in the world and reveal the ways of the wicked. This is what's written. Those 7, the eyes of Hashem, they rove to and fro through the whole earth. You know who else rose to and fro through the whole earth? Satan. How do we know? It says in the book of Job, and Satan was amongst them. He said, whence came you? From up and down and to and fro throughout the whole earth. So what is Satan? It's those 7 eyes. Where does evil come from? You're inside of you. That's why it's wicked. That's why those 7 things are an abomination. Right? Because we are the destroyers of the world. Because we take the likeness of reality, which is what? And we spill our seed all over it. Which means we just project all of our subjective truths all over reality, just spraying it all over the place, judging everything, having an opinion about everything, desecrating God, desecrating reality, which is the witness and likeness to God, as we're about to learn right now. These 7 eyes of Hashem refer to the lower 7 spheros and the 7 sparks, which must look up to the shining face of the Atika Kadisha to be washed with milk. By the supernal whiteness of the flow in that place, and he, hinting to the Atik, is the secret of what is written. He is your glory, and he is your God. Deuteronomy 10:21. He is your glory, and he is your God. From Ain comes my help. Okay. For he is our God, and we are his people that he tends. Psalms 95:7. He. Who's he? He. Why do we say Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Holy One, blessed be he? We think HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to Yud Ke Vav Ke, but no. It's the Holy One, blessed be he, the he who is blessing all things, right? Completely turns everything up on its head. And when speaking in the lower one, it is written Yod He Vav He, he is Elohim, because he was talking to Yod Ke Vav Ke. And when it says Yod Ke Vav Ke, he is Elohim, no, that's talking to Zeraim Pin. That language is the endless talking to Zeraim Pin. It's saying Zeraim Pin, he is the Elohim. That means he is God. You are a created thing. And he is merciful, atones sin, and will not destroy and restrain his wrath and anger, for it was not aroused. Okay. So now we see verse 8, he, the ancient Holy One, the head of the Atik. There's another one down below called Ma, what? A combination of the 2 letters Mem and He. And what is the difference between me and Ma? He replies, the first one is concealed and is called Me, who? It remains a question. Once man has searched and inquired in order to understand and climb from one level to another, and he's finally reached a level of awe, he is asked, what? This means, what have you learned? What have you seen? What have you attended to? Since everything is concealed as it was before. The first mention of what down below refers to 45, Ma, or the 45 name, which hints to Zeraim Pin via the name, the 45 name there. The second mention refers to Malchus, as it is written, what can I witness to you and what can I liken to you? It is also written, I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you this day. Thus earth is the witness, called what? And will be asked, what have you seen and what have you studied? Reality is the witness and likeness of God. Therefore, this likeness and witness will be required of us at death, as it is written, have the gates of death, the shadow of death been opened to you. And now verse 9, which is probably one of the most important passages of the entire section. We're coming into the very last 2 parshas here. It says, and about this secret is the meaning of what is written. What shall I take as a witness to you? And what shall I liken to you? Because when the temple was destroyed, a voice came forth and said, what shall I take as a witness for you, and what shall I liken to you? This is the meaning of, this means that using what I shall witness about you each and every day since the ancient days. Listen to the language of the Zohar. You really behold. When I say, what can I take as a witness, what can I liken to you? You guys read this in Likutei. But listen to the words of the Zohar. See how serious this is. And about the secret meaning is written, what shall I take as a witness to you, and what shall I liken to you? Because when the temple was destroyed, a voice came forth and said, what shall I take as a witness to you, what can I liken to you? This means that using what I shall witness about you each and every day since the ancient days, as is written, I call heaven and earth to bear witness this day against you. How guilty are we? Every day spilling seed all over, taking the witness of God You take reality and just spill all your subjective opinions on it. You don't see the divine in reality. Who's out here looking at tree on top of tree and mention? Who's revealing the glory of the earth and witnessing that glory of the earth? How many people out here just spilling their seed all over the place? What is spilling seed really now? You mean those 7 eyes of Satan that's roving to and fro and throughout the whole earth, judging everything, looking at all the ways of the wicked? But here we are being told, I will take what as a witness to you every day. And this is exactly why people say, what's the purpose of understanding these things or about these secrets of reality? Because if you understand every single thing that is going on in Likutei is taking what as a witness? I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you. That means reality is my witness. The holy Shekhinah is my witness that you pee yellow, that you poop brown, that you produce red and white. What is my witness? And I liken what to you every single day. And every secret down to the 6th day of creating man, I take what as a witness to you, because reality is my witness, because you emerge from that place. Let the waters under the heaven be gathered to one place. Behold the salivation in your mouth. Behold the water gathering into your reproductive organ. The waters under the heaven be gathered to one place. Look at Aleph separates them from Shin, tree on top of tree. You got 22 bones in your skull. I take what is a witness. I take what to your chromosomes. I call to your DNA, which bears witness. This is what it's really saying. You have to understand. This is why it's so important. Now you understand how we get out of Geulah. This passage right here is one of the most important passages of the entire Zohar. Because this is telling you right now what you need to do every day. You want to know, what am I here to do? This passage is telling you. You want to know how we bring about Tikkun Ha'olam? This passage is telling you every day, because the day you don't is a desecration against the illimitable. The day you don't do that is a desecration against God. You might as well be spilling your seed all over the ground, causing the death of everything. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. What shall I liken to you? In the very same manner I crowned you with holy crowns and made you ruler over the world. As it is written, is this the city men call the perfection of beauty? Meaning, listen to what it says. I crowned you with holy crowns and made you rule over the world. Because what's the opposite of ruling over everything? Not ruling over everything. God has withdrawn himself. You need to bring him here. You need to reveal him. You need to nullify the decree of this reality. You need to reveal it. Because every day you choose not to reveal it, this exile prolongs. We have to be the change. We have to nullify the system. The Holy One blessed makes decrees, righteous nullify it. The decree was to remove his power, remove his self. We need to bring him back. We need to crown him as ruler over the world. You need to reveal the illimitable every single day by taking what is a witness. Every single day. Every single day. There's no higher purpose than this. I have called you Jerusalem, built as a city that is compact together. What shall I equal to you? You will equal reality to God. Don't play with reality. Do not play with reality. There's a certain reason why I don't mention certain levels, as to not make people guilty beyond measure. But for you all here, it's permission is given for you to know the deep secret things of God, because I don't have a fear of any of you here desecrating God. But understand what reality, you better appreciate reality. You better appreciate everything in here. You better wake up and thank everything. That's what the sages say. Wake up. Thank you for this blanket. Thank you for these shoes. Thank you for hair. Thank you for health. Thank you for legs. Thank you for food. Thank you for light. Thank you for this door. Thank you for this roof. Because this is God. Do you not understand you are enveloped in it? You are enveloped in it. And what is equal to it? This is the witness and likeness to God. You are interacting with God. Everything you do is interacting with the illimitable. Right? You got to see this. This is very critical stuff. Because think about all these people that are in their heads and their ideas. Are they in reality? No, they're off in La La Land. They're off in snake daddy idolatry. They're off in their own God complexes. Think about how terrifying that is. And think about how blasphemous and guilty you are now. Because you're not taking reality to God. You shun reality and go off into La La Land. It's terrifying level right there. Right? It's terrifying. So, just as so what does it say here? What shall I equal to you? Just as your situation here, so it is seemingly above. referring to celestial Jerusalem, meaning that our situation here is the situation above, which means if you reveal illimitable here, the limitable becomes revealed above. Okay? Arousal above requires arousal below. We need to arouse the light in order to have it shown. Just as now the holy nation does not enter below with the sacred arrangements, so I swear to you that I will not enter above until your throngs come to you down below. Which means if you want redemption, we need to redeem it ourselves here in reality by taking what is a witness and what is a likeness. This is serious business, guys. This is the purpose. It is happening right now, right? For the first time in the history of humanity, we're all witnessing the greatest apex of human existence, the culmination of God's wondrous story, this Torah, is happening right now. By seeing what you have been seeing, by being exposed to all the things you're being exposed, you're watching the fulfillment of everything it's saying right now. Because now reality is my witness. And Moshe may have said to you, I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you this day, because they were wicked at that time. But let it be this time, at the time of the Rai Mehemna, let it be, I call heaven and earth to bear witness for you, not against you. Don't let it be against you. Don't be trapped in the seven royal houses of idolatry where heaven and earth really does witness against you, and you got a lot of problems. You got problems beyond your wildest imaginations. Every horrible thing can and will happen to you because you're guilty of eternal things. You're sinning against something so dangerous, it's terrifying. Like if you really knew, that's why I said they would rend their garments and cover themselves in ashes. They would eat dung and say, this is what we've been filled with. But there's no prophets in this generation. And someone's going to eat dung. What did the Holy One tell Ezekiel? He said, go eat human poop. Go eat excrement. This is what you're full of. Go eat this poop. Yeah, I can't eat poop, God. That's too much. Okay, go eat the cow poop and mix it in the bread and eat that. Think about this. And this is what he told a prophet. And look at us with egos. Oh, we're something special. You think you're above a prophet? He told are you a prophet? He told a prophet to eat poop. You're not even worthy to eat the poop. If you're wise, you cover yourself in ashes and eat the poop. Think about this, though. Think about this. This is the reality of the situation we find ourselves in. For real. And how dangerous it is. And why heaven and earth interacts with us. Because when earth starts rumbling, oh, I'm going to start sending nations into war. That world war, we're going to start slaughtering everybody. I mean, really, you got to see what's going on here. Okay. So it says, this is your consultation that I equate you at this level. This is your consultation, meaning that I equate you with reality. Oh God, reality is you. You are reality. You are real. Not the subjective ideas, but I'm going to see you in existence. I'm going to appreciate you and acknowledge you in existence. I'm going to be thankful and look at all your glorious beauty. I'm going to look at the sun and see it's yellow. I'm going to see the sky that is blue. I'm going to see elephant all around me and enveloped. I'm going to look at the tree and plant, appreciate that plant, appreciate the grass, appreciate the rock, appreciate the environment. I appreciate everything that's you because everything is you, right? Not my ideas of you. That is all blasphemy. Evil came before darkness before light, right? What comes before action, thought, wickedness, and the thoughts of a man's heart are evil continually. Torah was not false when it said that. It's madness going on in there. Keep your eyes. You need to behold existence, right? In every respect, and now you are here, your breach is great like the sea. Because you're here, because you're at the bottom of the restriction. We're at the bottom of our breach is great like the sea. If you claim that you have no existence or remedy, then who shall heal you? You have to understand there's no existence or remedy but this one remedy. This is the only existence remedy, which is who? By the revealing of who, which is by taking what as consultation, when taking what as the witness to God. Reality is God. You have to see this. Don't differentiate these two things. Who shall heal you? So it says, if you say you have no existence, no remedy, then who shall heal you? Because as long as you think you have existence and remedy, as long as you think you have it solved out in snake daddy mind and in the monkey brain, as long as you're serving that idolatry and you're in your midot and you're, reality, spilling your seed all over the place, there's no hope. Spilling a seed is one of the worst punishments, is the worst desecrations of God in all of existence. And we think spilling seed is just like, ejaculating on the floor. But this is a much higher level of spilling your seed on the ground. Spilling your seed on the ground is taking the very witness and likeness of God and desecrating it by your human limitations. Oh, I'm having a bad day because I feel this way or that way, so I'm going to desecrate God today. I'm going to desecrate the illimitable by spewing all of my garbage on it. Think about this. What kind of punishment should be done to a person who does this? What would be fitting to have done to a person? And you wonder why karma happens. It's because reality is going to pay you back because of what you've done, because you're desecrating God. You're desecrating the illimitable when you do that. Right? So you have to see how terrible it is to spill that seed all over the place. So if you say you have no existence, no remedy, then who will heal you? Namely, from that same superior concealed level, which is called who, which is he who concealed himself in who, through which everything exists, which is Bina, shall heal you and uphold you. Now we are here in the bottom of the restrictions, separated by countless klipot and husks between us and the illimitable one. Now it is written, if you claim you have no existence, no remedy, then who shall heal you? Namely, that concealed supernal level, which is who, through which everything exists, which is Bina, shall heal and uphold you. This refers to the mother's Torah, which contains within it as vessels to the light, the Torah of Atzilus. When one has let go of any hope or remedy to our condition, and they realize that everything they know is in error and wrong, then and only then can they be helped. Because as long as you think you know what you're talking about, you're still an idol worshiper. Until it says man is not to rely on his own understanding. Until the Torah becomes your understanding, really becomes your understanding, you will only ever think you know what you're talking about. And in doing that, desecrate reality forever. When you have no existence and no remedy, you empty everything out. You are an empty vessel. Now you can be filled with something. As long as you got dirt in your vessel, the water that goes in there is murky. You need to remove all the dirt. No dirt. You know nothing. If you had no existence, no remedy, nothing. Now clear water enters into you. Now you can see, because you're not relying on what you think reality is. You've relied all your understanding into the Torah. All your understanding is on Lashon HaKodesh. All your understanding on Zohar. All your understanding are on the secret mysteries of God, the Das of Hashem. All your understanding is the Das of Hashem. When all your understanding is the Das of Hashem, and there's not even a little intermingling from the side of evil, then you see clearly. And now reality becomes aware to you. But as long as you keep mixing in that subjective understanding into the reality, this exile is going to prolong and problems are going to keep arising. So it says, it realized that everything they know is an error and wrong. Then and only then can they be helped until the awareness of the Olam HaSheker, world of lies, right? And that everything we know is a lie and an error, can the real truth be revealed, which is the light of the letters, Aleph separates them from Shin being the primary example. And so we must reveal the illimitable as the underlying existence of everything and take what is a witness and what is a likeness to the illimitable. Behold, so page 21 shows us, behold, I take what is a witness and likeness to you, O illimitable one, every day and in all things. For behold, all things are as nothing before you, and all other things are lies and great error outside of you, who are the truth of all things. And it is through and by you that we are saved and redeemed. Aleph separates them from Shin. This is what is a witness and what is a likeness to you every day. And don't let it ever leave before your eyes. Not even for a millisecond, because the second you let that light leave your eyes and you render it as a concept, which is, think about this. You render God through your mental form. It's like, oh, intellectual information. Let me just throw that off into the wood chipper. No. Just because you stop seeing it doesn't mean that it stops existing. You have to see it, because then immediately you enter into desecration. And you wonder why all these things are happening in the reality. We have to avoid this at all costs. Moshe said, I place before you life and death, blessings and curses, and so will be with Rai and Mehenna. I place before you life and death. Because this information will give you life. This information will also be your death. I place before you blessings and curses. This information will bless you. This information will also curse you like nothing you've ever seen before. And for your sake, I pray you choose life. You have to choose it. I can't choose it for you. My job is not to choose for you. My job, I am programmed in the reality. I exist. to put before you life and death, blessings and curses, to reveal the illimitable one to you, and to call heaven and earth as a witness. As I said, let it be a witness for you and not against you, because Moshe said, I call heaven and earth to bear witness against you. But let it be for you. Choose life. Choose life. Make things easy. Make things easy on yourself. Make things easy on the reality. Let the transition be easy and simple. Okay, so it's the final parsha. Mi means the end of heaven. Israel Sabban Tavuna. Ma means the end of heaven below, which is Malkuth. So Sabban Tavuna is Bina, as I was mentioning earlier. And this is what Yaakov, who is Zorampin, inherited, and he reached from end to end. That was the 45th name that was talked about earlier. From the end of heaven, which is me, down to the lowest level, which is Ma, because he stands in the middle, between top and bottom of heaven. And because of this, who has created these? For Bina, called who has created these? Ele, referring to Zorampin and Nukva, called these, containing the letters El, which is Zorampin, and He, hinting to Nukva. And when they are combined, they are called Elohim. Thus it was written, lift your eyes and behold me bra ele, who has created these, which is Ima, who created without Abba. Okay, who has created these? Understand, they came from the head, which is who. It's a whole different conversation beyond the exegesis of what's happening now. It is talked about later though. The term created bara hints to Berea, the place, El, Zarampin, and Nukva came into existence, mainly Zarampin and Nukva, because Bina of the Atik is the hard spark, and Zarampin and Nukva, which are the 7 sparks that emerged from it, right, came out of that place. And so when it says lift up your eyes and see who created these, means lift up your forms and behold the process of creation. Mi bara ele. And then the words mi bara ele hint to me and ele, which is the word Elohim. So that's what the Zohar is concluding with here. We can see there a little diagram, right? Mi is who's Ima, bara is created, Berea, El is the Zarampin, and He is Nukva. Mi bara ele. That tells us Ima, Berea, created Zarampin, Nukva. That's what the key is. So that's where it concludes at. So Hashem willing, I will usher in the Zohar thing very, very quickly. But I'm still determining how I'm going to do this, because without Likute, it's just beyond the scope of fully grasping and understanding. But with Likute, it is accessible and can be made known for to everybody. But keep this PDF with you guys. All of you that are here listening, keep it with you, because it is the key, especially that 3rd section there. It is the key to understanding what our purpose is here in reality, and what we have to do, and what we can do, and how important it is. I can't express enough the importance of taking what is a witness and what is a likeness, and understand the dangers, and why I always talk about the peshat, because peshat is a seruf of tepesh, means fool, makes you a fool. Because if you understand, if you read things literally without the sod, then it's not that you're understanding anything, is that you think you're understanding things. You're rendering everything as subjective truths, which is incredibly dangerous. You think, what can I take as a witness to you? What can I liken to you? And you think it is a question. And the question then logically is, nothing is the witness and nothing is the likeness, meaning there's nothing to witness or likeness to God. What can I witness to you? What can I liken to you? And they render that as in there's nothing to. But do you see how much an error that is? If you accept that to be the interpretation, if you accept that as a question, a rhetorical statement, as in there's nothing to liken to God, do you see how much you blaspheme against reality, which is the likeness and witness to God? Because it wasn't a question, it was a statement, because there's no questions, it's just statements. Where's a question mark in Lashon HaKodesh? There isn't one. It's a statement. You see the dangers in interpreting it like that? It's not that they know, it's that they have the idea of knowing. So there are a lot of main takeaways. If there was anything that you gain from this private study right now, which I rarely talk at these levels, and I can take you guys levels far beyond this conversation that I'm revealing now. This is still drops in the bucket compared to the real levels. But nonetheless, at this level that we're talking, there's 2 things. One, to show you the depth of the actual Zohar. Why do you call it Zohar HaKodesh? And this is how every single thing in there should be. It's so incredibly holy. The matters are so incredibly important, so incredibly lofty. The second thing is to show you how to properly go through exegesis, meaning Zohar exegesis. because Zohar exegesis is all formula. If you saw, like, every single thing was accounted for, every line was accounted for. There was not a single thing that was not accounted for without explanations. That's the level of Zohar. So every line is incredible exegesis. And the last thing is the Zohar is opening up with this incredible revelation about reality being the witness to God. This is how we get out of the. You want to know how we get out of exile? When we stop the exile ourselves. When we decide finally we've had enough and we take ourselves out of exile. Okay? Did God take Israel out of exile, or did he say get in the water? Did the Holy One, blessed be he, just scoop him up by his hand and carry him off into Sinai, or did they have to get up themselves and go? And when they sat there and turned back to pray to Moshe, what did the Holy One say? He said, get in the water. Meaning go in the water. You do it. I told you, go in the water. I gave you 2 legs. You 2 legs, walk around. What are you doing? We need to recognize we need to take ourselves out of exile. And we need to not only take ourselves out of exile, we need to redeem the reality by taking what as the witness and likeness. And let that be the most important concept behind learning everything that you've learned in Likutei. It's for this one purpose. It's so that what becomes the likeness to God. That this is the main and most important teaching behind why is it important to learn all of these things. It's so that you can actually have a true relationship, true understanding with the illimitable. And that we can make this place even greater than the heavens. This reality here. By taking evil and turning it into good. By nullifying decrees. By nullifying all the decrees here. And manifesting the divine by being a partner, a co-creator with the divine. So, okay, guys, I know this has gone on for a very long time, so thank you guys for those of you that are still here. And that being said, we'll go ahead and conclude. It is Shabbat, so I'll let you guys all get off on Shabbat. I'll speak with you guys hopefully after Shabbat. And for this small private group, which is a very unique group, if you guys are interested, I'll share with you guys more deep secrets, or we'll have more private lessons. Maybe not so long as this first one, but hopefully we'll have more of these. Take away those key concepts here, and many blessings to you all. As David Amelech said, open my eyes and behold the wonders of your Torah. Okay. Amen, amen. Shalom and salam, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Shalom.
Thank you.